My world ended in one damn notification. My name is Harper Collins. I swear, I wasn't prepared. One moment I was scrolling through my playlist, vibing low-key to some dumb morning song, sipping iced coffee, and the next moment, my whole life literally flipped upside down. My phone buzzed, and I froze before even looking. Jackson Wilder tagged Addison Page in a post. At first, I thought my brain glitched. Maybe my phone was broken. Maybe Instagram was trolling. But no. The picture loaded again. Addison's stupidly perfect hand on his shoulder, her glossy smile, his leaning in, grinning, like I was never even part of his world. Deadass, my stomach dropped. My chest felt like it got hit by a truck. My fingers went numb. I whispered, "No freaking way." My heart was screaming, my mind screaming, and all I could do was stare at the screen like it had betrayed me. Addison Page, Miss Overconfident, fake laugh, flirty for fun girl, always hovering, always manipulating, always the sun, and everyone else just orbiting around her. And Jackson, my forever, my trust, he played me like I was disposable, like I was some placeholder in his little drama. My brain literally did a reboot. Did he cheat? Is she involved? Was I stupid? I said it out loud. Am I really that stupid? And that voice, that anger and heartbreak and humiliation boiling inside me, whispered something else. He didn't block you. He just made the girl who'll ruin him. That line hit harder than the heartbreak. That was my first spark of revenge. Tiny, dangerous, undeniable. I threw on my jacket, wiped my face, stepped outside before my mom could notice. Cold air hit me like reality slapped me, but it didn't help. My legs carried me automatically. Streets blurred, cars sounded far away. People moved in some other reality. I didn't remember how long I walked, maybe minutes, maybe hours. It all melted into a muted gray world. Everything was dead silent except my racing heart. Memories of Jackson played like a broken record. Promises, laughs, touches, lies, each one a knife twisting in my gut. And I whispered again, why wasn't I enough? The question hit like poison, but I knew it wasn't mine to carry. It was his failure. And suddenly, amid the storm inside me, I felt eyes on me. Harper? That voice cut through everything. I froze. Slowly, I turned. Jacob Miller. Hoodie half-zipped, grocery bag in hand, eyes soft but alert, like he'd been expecting this. Calm, protective, observant. My body almost relaxed despite the chaos because Jacob, he knew something I didn't. And the way he said, "Hey, you okay?" wasn't pity. It was grounding. Safe. Real. "You look..." He paused, searching, then whispered, "Hurt." And that word hurt was sharper than betrayal itself. My throat tightened. "He blocked me," I whispered. Jacob's jaw clenched, eyes flickering like he already knew this was coming. "Why do you look like that?" I asked, voice cracking. "What do you know?" He hesitated. "Jackson's been acting weird," he said quietly. That word again, weird, echoed in my skull. "Weird how?" I pressed. Jacob looked away, exhaled, then whispered, "Just trust me. None of this is your fault." His tone wasn't comforting. It was protective, like he'd been watching it all unravel from a distance, waiting for me to see the truth myself. And something inside me snapped differently, not broken anymore. Rising, fire, strength, a silent, deadly promise. Jackson thought blocking me ended it. Deadass. He had no clue the girl he erased was already plotting him out of her world. And tomorrow? Tomorrow was going to hit very different. Jacob glanced at me, that hint of knowing in his eyes. "You're stronger than you think, Harper," he said. And I believed it, because deep down, I felt the shift. The first real change from heartbreak to power, anger into strategy, despair into revenge. No cap, this was just the beginning. The girl he thought he controlled was gone, replaced with someone he'd never forget, someone untouchable. And I swore to myself silently, viciously, beautifully, he would regret every damn thing. My head was spinning faster than the campus Wi-Fi on finals week, and honestly, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I mean, deadass. How could someone I trusted, someone I loved like I'd never love again, just throw me like I was a bad Snapchat story? My hands shook as I stared at the screen. The notification that had ruined my morning, my week, my entire vibe, glaring back at me. It was a simple blocked. Just a button, a tap, and suddenly I was invisible. Invisible in his life, invisible in my own, and somehow I realized I had been letting him define me for far too long. I remember pacing my tiny apartment, the city sounds filtering through the cracked window, my laptop humming like it knew my thoughts were chaotic. No cap. I felt like my brain did a whole reboot. Every memory, every "I love you" text, every stolen glance and whispered promise came crashing back. And suddenly, everything made sense. Addison Page wasn't just some random background character in my nightmare. She was the spark, the subtle shadow in his smile, the hand in his jacket, the laugh that always seemed a little too loud when I walked in. Loki, I hated her for it, but I hated myself more for not seeing it sooner. And that's when it hit me. Not the heartbreak, not the betrayal, but the clarity. If he thought a block could erase me, he was dead-ass wrong. I was about to become the girl he would never touch, never text, never see without regretting every damn choice. I needed a plan, a strategy, something lethal, not in violence, but in presence, power, dominance. I slid onto my laptop, fingers trembling but determined. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, why not flex every part of me? I started posting snippets of my mornings, messy hair, sweat from my runs, a smile at a joke only I understood, coffee spills caught mid-laugh, stretches that showed muscles I didn't know I had, little victories like nailing a tricky assignment or acing a mini pitch at my startup idea. For real, it wasn't about them seeing me. It was about me seeing me. And of course, social media would just amplify it. Campus life hit differently the next day. Walking down the hall, I caught Jackson Wilder in the corner of my eye, his mouth slightly open, trying too hard to act casual. No cap, he didn't even realize how much his own panic was spilling through his posture. And Addison? Oh, Addison. Her perfectly fake smiling face faltered for a split second when our eyes met. I low-key caught that twitch in her fingers, a tiny shake as she realized something had shifted. The power wasn't just in me, it was in them, noticing. Jacob was waiting near the cafe, the quiet eye in my storm. His presence steadied me like gravity itself. "You got this," he said, casual, but I swear his eyes carried weight. Not judgment, not pity, just understanding. I let myself breathe, just a second, feeling like the chaos had a pause button. Being around him made the noise outside melt into background static, and honestly, I low-key felt seen, safe, and maybe, just maybe, a little spark of something more that wasn't complicated. Just right. I walked into my first class, every step deliberate, feeling the ripple of attention without even trying. Whispers floated around. "Is that Harper? She's glowing? No freaking way." I smiled, just the slightest, letting them stew in the suspense. Every glance, every reaction was a chess move. Jackson's eyes darted around, caught in disbelief, and Addison's smile faltered again, this time longer. They were watching, analyzing, noticing the girl they thought they could break. Now untouchable. By the time the sun dipped low, I had a schedule mapped. Posts, meetings, projects, workouts, and strategically timed coffee breaks in spots I knew they'd notice. No cap, it felt electric, like the entire city was my board game, and I was moving the pieces. Each post, each movement, was calculated to build presence, power, aura. I wasn't petty. I wasn't reckless. I was unreachable. And the best part? They didn't know it yet. Later that night, I sat on my balcony, city lights blurring like sparks in the dark, and I let myself smile without guilt. Jacob joined me, leaning casually on the railing. "You're not the girl he thinks you are," he murmured, almost a whisper. But the weight in his voice? Dead-ass. It cut deeper than any block, any laugh, any betrayal. And I knew he was right. I wasn't her. I was Harper Collins, leveled up, untouchable, and rising. The girl who was about to make history in her own life, one calculated, powerful step at a time. And somewhere deep inside, I planted the final seed for Jackson, a tiny whisper to the universe. He didn't block me, he just built the girl who'll ruin him. The campus air was thick with whispers, and I swear it felt like I could taste the tension. Dead-ass. The moment I stepped into the hallway, the world shifted. Everyone's eyes were on me, not because I was flaunting anything, but because I radiated control. Jackson's gaze followed every move, the tiny twitch in his jaw betraying the panic he tried to hide behind his overconfident smirk. Addison's smile was too perfect, her posture rigid, fingers lightly tapping on her bag as if she were trying to ground herself. But I could see the storm brewing beneath that forced mask. Low-key, it was almost hilarious how transparent they were. I walked slowly, deliberately, savoring the subtle chaos my presence created. My morning Instagram post, a sweaty, messy-haired selfie with a sly grin, was blowing up with likes and comments, subtle enough to seem casual, but calculated enough to plant seeds of envy. Each ping on my phone was a small victory. Every glance, every double take, was validation that my rise was undeniable, my transformation irreversible. It wasn't about revenge in the petty sense anymore. It was strategy, influence, and presence, the kind that leaves them guessing, powerless, and obsessed. Jacob slid next to me as I paused by the lockers, his presence calm but intense. "For real," he whispered, glancing at me with that steady gaze. "You're lethal, Harper. Like, low-key untouchable." His hand brushed mine briefly as he handed me a notebook, a gesture so subtle it could be missed, but I noticed. That small contact sent a jolt through me, mixing confidence with warmth, grounding me even as the world tried to destabilize me. His eyes didn't judge. They steadied me, letting me know that he understood the calculated storm I had become. By mid-morning, I had already mapped out the next moves. Campus interactions, Instagram teasers, subtle nods, and careful placement of casual comments. They all served a purpose. No cap, it was like a mental chessboard, every glance, every whisper, every slight smirk a piece to be maneuvered. Jackson and Addison had no idea that their reactions were completely predictable, completely mine to orchestrate. I caught Jackson's fleeting panic when my post from yesterday went live, showing me laughing with confidence after my morning run. Addison's fingers twitched again. Her eyes betrayed fleeting insecurity, the kind she desperately tried to cover with superiority and forced poise. Jacob and I slipped into a quiet corner of the library after lunch. "Deadass, this is art," he said softly, watching me scroll through my scheduled posts. I gave a small smirk, knowing he understood without me needing to explain. This silent partnership, this unspoken alignment, was our weapon. "They don't even know the half of it yet," I murmured, low enough for only him to hear. His slight nod was acknowledgement that we were synced. Mind, strategy, and subtle emotional warfare perfectly aligned. The cafe later that afternoon was another stage. Jackson's posture was tense. Addison's attempts at casual chatter were punctuated by involuntary twitches and side glances. I strolled past, coffee in hand, letting the weight of my presence settle like gravity in the room. Each small exchange, each unnoticed glance, was a win. I low-key smiled at the thought. Every micro-reaction they had was a testament to my growth, my unshakable rise, my silent mastery over them. By dusk, city lights casting reflections on the wet sidewalks, I reviewed my next phase. Social media posts were timed perfectly, campus interactions mapped out, subtle victories highlighted in comments, all without a single hint of desperation. Jacob walked beside me, shoulder brushing mine occasionally, his silence a steady pulse amid the chaos. That quiet companionship, that unspoken trust, elevated my confidence. I wasn't just surviving, I was orchestrating a masterclass in perception, power, and poetic revenge. Addison glanced at me from across the hall as I passed, her forced smile cracking slightly. Jackson's jaw tightened, and I caught the slight exhale he didn't know he'd made. It was beautiful in a vindictive, calculated way. Every step I took, every glance I returned, every micro-expression I noted, reinforced a single truth. I was untouchable, strategic, and rising. And this was only the beginning of the game they never saw coming. By the time I reached home, sunset streaking the skyline, I felt it fully. The energy, the control, the satisfaction of silent victories, and the thrill of what was yet to come. HarperCollins wasn't just back. She was leveled up, tactical, unstoppable, and ready to execute a revenge that was as elegant as it was devastating. And the best part? Dead ass. They wouldn't even see it coming until it was too late. Sunset sank deeper behind the campus towers, painting the sky in streaks of gold and bruised purple. Shadows stretched like silent observers along the walkways, and I moved through them with calm precision. Yet beneath the composed surface, a flicker of doubt slithered. Just for a second, tiny but undeniable, I wondered, has someone already caught a glimpse behind my curtain? The quad was buzzing, casual chatter blending with distant laughter, but the air felt charged. Addison lingered near the science building, jaw tight, eyes flicking in calculated beats. Her fingers tapped on her phone, an unconscious rhythm betraying her focus. Jackson's forced smile, the one he had perfected over months, faltered as he caught my gaze. The micro-expression, A barely there twitch was enough. Deadass. His calm mask was cracking. Jacob stayed close, silent but alert, his presence a stabilizing current beneath my storm. Harper. Wait, he murmured, voice low, almost urgent. Someone's watching. Outside your usual perimeter. My pulse spiked. My flawless strategy felt suddenly fragile, threads of anticipation tangling with a rare slice of fear. Who? How? My mind snapped into action, recalculating every angle, every unnoticed observer. I pulled out my phone, posting a story mid-walk, a casual shot of my messy hair, a grin laced with mischief and strength, legs mid-stride, the sunset painting warmth on my skin. Comments came fast. One anonymous username stood out, short and chilling. Keep moving, but be careful. Low-key, the words sent a shiver down my spine. The game was evolving faster than anticipated, and the thrill now carried a sharp edge. Addison's reaction shifted immediately. Her fingers twitched, this time a mix of envy and apprehension. She whispered to a nearby friend, eyes tracking my every move. Jackson tried to mask it, leaning against a lamppost, but the slight jerk in his shoulder, the subtle tightening of his jaw, betrayed his scramble. They were learning, fast, but the lesson would come too late. Jacob stepped closer, voice firm now, eyes scanning a shadowed corner. Harper, there's someone near the east entrance, hidden in plain sight. They're watching the hallway, not the quad. Could be linked to the comment. My heart raced, not with fear, but the adrenaline of challenge. I allowed a micro smile, letting a spark of vulnerability show only to him. Just for a moment, doubt flickered. Microscopic, yet electric. Every step forward was deliberate, every glance an assessment. My aura, my presence, was weaponized. The street lamps flickered on, casting halos around the walking students. Faces passed, micro-reactions catalogued in my mind. Addison's subtle jaw clench, Jackson's narrowed eyes, random strangers' curiosity. The chessboard was alive, each piece unaware of its move's consequences. The girl from the previous week, the one I hadn't expected to cross paths with again, stood at the far corner, subtle but alert. Unknown, unmapped, perfect. The stakes weren't just social dominance anymore. Whispers, observers, anonymous warnings, all hinted at escalation beyond the ordinary. I let my story post linger, captions casual, yet potent. Golden hour vibes, walking through storms, smiling anyway. Jock's unbothered such strategy. Comments pinged incessantly. A new one. You're playing too close to the edge. My lips quirked. Strategic awareness, vulnerability, and dominance in perfect harmony. Jacob brushed my hand briefly. A grounding gesture, a silent confirmation. His eyes met mine, steady but alert. Being around him quieted the chaos but amplified the stakes. I could trust him to notice what I couldn't, and he did. By the time I reached the dorm, my mind was a storm of strategy, observation, and controlled chaos. I mapped the unknown observer, assessed Addison and Jackson's psychological states, reviewed Jacob's warning, and considered the anonymous messages. Every micro-expression, every whispered rumor, every strategic post was now data, converging toward a silent, inevitable reckoning. And in the flicker of lamplight in the hallway, I noticed something. A shadow detaching from the wall, just for a heartbeat. The game had officially escalated. I allowed myself a breath, tiny but satisfying. Power wasn't just dominance. It was foresight, adaptability, and the thrill of the unknown. The storm wasn't approaching. It had arrived, and I stood in its center, eyes fierce, mind sharp, ready to bend it entirely to my will. Dawn broke with a pale gold light that dripped across the campus in a way that made even the ordinary hallways feel cinematic. Harper paused at the edge of the quad, her sneakers crunching lightly on the gravel, and for a brief second, doubt flickered. Microscopic, but undeniably real. She swallowed it down, steadying her spine, letting the cold morning air reinforce the armor she'd meticulously built around herself. Her phone buzzed, and she instinctively glanced at the screen. Another message, anonymous, waiting with just 3 chilling words. Closer than you think. Her pulse spiked, adrenaline sliding into focus. Harper's fingers tapped rhythmically on the phone, unconsciously calculating every scenario. The anonymity didn't scare her, but it demanded attention. Who had seen her moves? Was this a friend testing her, or a predator lurking in plain sight? She shifted her weight, eyes sweeping the quad, catching a shadow flicker near the library entrance, too deliberate to be random. Jacob appeared beside her, a silent anchor in the chaos. His presence grounded her, though even he noticed the subtle tension. "Harper, someone's messing with your plan," he whispered, his voice low but urgent. "I saw something you didn't." He gestured toward the hall, and in that gesture alone was a warning. Watch the exits, watch the reactions. Harper's lips curled into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. That one line, brief as it was, carried the weight of trust and strategy combined. The quad stretched around them, students milling as oblivious as ever to the underlying tension. Harper walked forward, each step calculated, yet her mind raced through contingencies. Instagram posts scheduled for today had to land perfectly. Each public smile, each casual laugh, each accidental stumble, all instruments in her symphony. Her inner voice reminded her, every reaction counts, every flicker of surprise, every twitch, every heartbeat is ammunition. Across the courtyard, Addison shifted, jaw tightening as she spotted Harper's subtle confidence. Her forced smile quivered, a micro-expression Harper would have caught if she were observing directly. Jackson's shoulders tensed, fingers drumming against his notebook, eyes darting repeatedly to Harper. Yet something else hung in the air, a whisper of uncertainty. Harper had introduced a new variable yesterday, a tactical adjustment they hadn't accounted for. Now it was clear. She was evolving faster than they could predict. Harper's phone buzzed again. Another anonymous line. And someone else knows too. Goosebumps raced along her forearms, but she exhaled, steadying herself. Fear tried to claw up her throat, but she swallowed it, letting it harden into calculated resolve. Jacob noticed the brief tightening of her jaw, the flicker of unease in her eyes, and leaned subtly closer. His hand brushed hers for the tiniest moment, not enough to break protocol, just enough to remind her that she wasn't navigating this alone. The quad narrowed as they approached the cafe. Harper paused, scanning the windows, the patrons, the reflections on the glass. A student near the exit fumbled with a backpack, glancing in her direction a fraction too often. Harper's eyes narrowed. Observation, micro-expression, opportunity. She mentally filed the behavior, noting its potential leverage. Jacob mirrored her glance, silently communicating, "We see everything." Inside, the cafe smelled of roasted coffee and toasted bagels. Harper set her backpack down, letting her eyes roam, catching the twitch of Addison's fingers across the counter, the barely audible inhale of Jackson behind her. Subtle, almost invisible, yet Harper noticed. She pulled out her laptop, fingers brushing the keys in a slow, deliberate rhythm, simulating casual activity while her mind raced. Each post she uploaded, each story shared, was another chess move, carefully calculated for maximum ripple effect. A notification popped up, another anonymous message. This time, "Stop before it gets ugly." Harper's lips pressed into a thin line. The tone was different now, menacing, almost intimate in its awareness. Not just an observer, an active participant, perhaps even a rival testing her. She glanced at Jacob. His eyes narrowed. "Someone's feeding into your momentum," he said quietly. "And they're playing a game we didn't know existed." Her pulse quickened, but Harper thrived on tension. This was not chaos, this was theater. Every student in the room, every subtle reaction, every minor shift in posture was another instrument in the story she was orchestrating. A micro-expression on Addison's face, a slight tightening around the eyes, indicated recognition, unease, maybe fear. Harper filed it away. Jackson's jaw clenched. His posture stiffened, predictable, yet necessary. Harper exhaled slowly, letting her calm dominate. "For a moment I wondered if I was losing control," she admitted silently. But control wasn't lost. It was evolving. Each uncertainty, each new threat only sharpened her strategy, reinforcing her aura of untouchable confidence. Jacob's subtle presence amplified it. He didn't need to speak. His glances, his silent alignment with her moves, conveyed assurance. She was strong, yet human, calculated, yet vulnerable just enough to feel real. As they exited the cafe, Harper's phone buzzed yet again, a cryptic text, a puzzle with a layer of emotion. "Interesting move. Keep going, if you dare." Harper's smirk returned, a touch of adrenaline lighting her eyes. Unknown, unpredictable forces were converging, but she was ready. Each challenge, each subtle opponent only added to her power, her presence, her legend in motion. Steps echoed across the courtyard as Harper and Jacob moved through the morning haze. Shadows lengthened, sunlight dappled the marble walkways, and each student, unaware of the unfolding psychological chess, became part of her canvas. She glanced at Jacob briefly. His calm, focused demeanor reminded her that strength was not just in action, but in partnership. Even the tiniest moment, his hand near hers, his eyes locking hers for a second, lent her a grounding, a reminder that human connection could coexist with domination. By the time they reached the library, Harper's phone lit again. Another anonymous line. "The game isn't over, they're closer than you think." Harper tapped her lips, considering options, scanning faces, reading micro-reactions, mapping trajectories. Jacob leaned in, whispering, "We adjust, we don't panic. Every move is ours if we stay 3 steps ahead." Harper's lips twitched into a confident grin. Exactly. The morning cycle ended, but the tension didn't. Harper's strategy was evolving in real time, as if the campus itself were a living chessboard. Each interaction, each post, each reaction from Addison, Jackson, or the unseen observer was another move, another story, another opportunity to weave dominance and subtle psychological control. And just as they prepared to leave, Harper caught a glint of movement from the corner of her eye. A new player, unknown, observing her with calculated interest. A smile crept across her face. Perfect. The game had escalated, stakes higher than ever. Harper was ready. The quad was drenched in twilight, the kind of dim glow that made every shadow a possibility, every corner a secret waiting to unfold. Harper's steps echoed softly against the stone paths, deliberate, steady, yet infused with a tension that only she could command. For a fleeting heartbeat, doubt flirted at the edges of her mind, a tiny flicker of vulnerability that made her pulse quicken. Just for a moment she allowed herself to feel it, the weight of all the unseen eyes, the anonymous warnings, the days of careful strategy converging into this one pivotal night. Jacob fell in line beside her, silent, observant, a steadying presence against the chaos. His fingers brushed hers as they passed, a subtle anchor in the swirl of anticipation. "Harper," he murmured, voice low but firm. "Remember, being untouchable isn't just about fear. It's about choosing when to strike and when to stand your ground." That brief touch, that whispered truth, was enough. Harper drew in a breath, letting the quiet strength in his gaze seep into her bones. She smiled, a small, genuine curve that softened her calculated exterior, humanized her in the most elegant way. The campus was alive, yet every gaze seemed sharpened, every posture measured. Addison lingered near the library steps, a forced confidence in her stance masking the tremor in her fingers. Jackson paced near the fountain, jaw clenched, eyes flicking nervously between groups of students, unsure how to navigate Harper's invisible dominance. Harper's eyes skimmed each micro-expression, the tiny flare of nostrils, the subtle shift of weight, the unconscious clench of fists. Every reaction was a note in a symphony she was conducting, and she was master of the orchestra. Her phone buzzed, another message, anonymous yet loaded with menace. "You're closer than you think, and someone else knows too." Harper's pulse surged, not with fear, but exhilaration. She typed back, precise, calm. "I see it coming, always." Inside the student center, the tension grew palpable. Every step Harper took resonated with intent. Every glance carried weight. Her social media posts had primed the campus, but now the real challenge unfolded in person, in subtle gestures and silent acknowledgments. Students shifted instinctively, whispers floated across corners, and Harper absorbed it all, processing, anticipating, orchestrating. Jacob's gaze flicked toward the far end of the hall. A figure moved deliberately, shadowed, unknown. He leaned in, whispering, "Harper, there's someone new watching, not just curious. They're testing, learning." Harper's smirk was minimal but loaded with confidence. Threats sharpened her, observers fueled her strategy. She thrived here. Addison approached with caution, lips curved in a practiced smile, eyes betraying tension. "Harper," she said smoothly, but her voice wavered just enough. "You won't win this." Harper tilted her head, voice soft yet commanding. "Victory isn't about proving them wrong. It's about knowing you're right." Her micro-expression, slight raise of an eyebrow, relaxed shoulders, subtle glow in her eyes, radiated dominance without intimidation. Jackson faltered under her measured gaze, strategy unraveling. Harper didn't speak. She didn't need to. One glance, one shift in her posture, and his carefully laid plans collapsed quietly in the shadow of her presence. Every move she made was deliberate, each interaction layered with calculated subtlety. Then Jacob stepped forward, finally breaking silence. Harper. The new observer, they're dangerous, not in brute force but in influence. They notice patterns, anticipate moves, watch closely. Harper nodded, allowing herself a micro flicker of concern, humanizing her without weakening her aura. This is the kind of challenge that sharpens me, she thought. The observer, finally stepping from shadow, revealed a quiet confidence, a subtle aura that matched Harper's own. Every eye followed, every student held breath. Harper met their gaze without flinching, internal calculation whirring. Strategy wasn't reaction, it was preemption. Each potential move had been considered, every misstep predicted. Her phone vibrated again. Message. Well played. Can you sustain it? Harper's grin was measured, precise. Sustain? I will redefine it. The quad became an arena of quiet tension. Each interaction, a smile, a nod, a casual glance, was a calculated pulse. Harper navigated seamlessly, reinforcing dominance through presence and subtle psychological play. Addison's mask slipped intermittently, Jackson's nerves frayed. The unknown observer catalogued, measured, tested. Harper moved like a force of nature, calm, unstoppable, deliberate. The final moment came as the campus lights flickered on, blending with the last remnants of twilight. Harper paused, letting the weight of her triumph settle. She had faced rivals, anonymous threats, and unknown observers. She had been underestimated, doubted, and challenged, and she had emerged, strategically, emotionally, undeniably victorious. Jacob walked up beside her, eyes meeting hers, silent understanding shared. Harper exhaled slowly, the tiny moments of doubt, the brief micro-vulnerabilities, the unseen calculations, they all culminated in perfection. She had grown, not just in strategy, but in self-awareness, strength, and humanity. The anonymous message blinked one last time. Game complete. You've won, for now. Harper allowed herself a private laugh, a fleeting release. Victory wasn't external applause. It was the quiet knowledge that every choice, every calculation, every micro-step had been flawless. As Harper and Jacob strolled down the lantern-lit walkways, side by side, the campus around them seemed subdued, almost reverent. Addison and Jackson lingered in the shadows, remnants of past challenges. The observer melted into the night, a silent promise of future tests, but Harper's dominance, her mastery, her story in this chapter, was complete. For a heartbeat, Harper reflected, truly reflected, not on revenge, not on validation, but on growth. I did this for me, for my strength, for my mind, for my life. Every hurt, every doubt, every strategy had forged her into someone unshakable. And as the night deepened, the stars above witnessing quietly, Harper and Jacob disappeared into the quiet paths, side by side, a bond strengthened by trials and triumphs, their presence leaving the campus forever changed. The chapter closed with grace, power, and heart, perfect cinematic closure, a finale worthy of the journey, yet leaving the whisper of infinite possibilities.